To the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Today, my guest is Ken Milgrom from Honest Real Estate. Ken, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Okay, so I always start off the show by asking, how did you get started in real estate?
Originally, I was supposed to be started in real estate. It's probably 22, 23. I've always had an interest in getting real estate. Had kids young, kind of had to work, support the family, things like that. So I kind of put it on hold. And then just years down the line, I just decided, it's time to get back into it. Went back into it.
Okay, so what were you doing? Because you got right in the thick of things, 22, 23, when the market was really hot. So what were you doing prior to that?
Before that, I was working in a dealership. I was a technician, lead technician, shop foreman, at a dealership for 25 years.
Okay.
When I decided to get back into real estate, I was in a part-time, working full-time at the dealership, doing real estate part-time. That's how I, jumped back into it.
Okay, so where's that connection from working in a car to real estate? And there's really, and especially working in like more of the service part of it, it wasn't like you're a salesperson. So how does one take that leap of faith? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, where did that come from? Like that saying, I want to be on the other side.
Like I said, it was always there. I've always wanted to get into real estate years ago. Just, working in the automotive industry for, 25 years, kind of got to a point where, I needed a shift. Body was starting to get beat up from working on cars. So it's like, keep doing this and be a cripple when I'm, 55, or, make the shift and, jump into it.
Okay. So now you're a full-time agent. So was it a little bit, frightening to make that switch from a salary, to now, hey, I may not get paid? What did that look like?
So it was never a salary. So even there, it was 100% commission. So for me, I've always had commission jobs. It's, I started out of high school doing appliance repair, 100% commission. Automotive was commission, no base salary. So that shift was easy for me.
Okay.
But, working at the same place for 25 years, knowing that industry and, making a whole career change at, 46 years old.
Right.
Yeah, it's scary shit.
Right. Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Right. Okay. Now, you're with Honest Real Estate, right?
Yes.
And that's the only agency you've been with?
That's the only agency. Yeah.
Okay, great. And now, how did you become? How did you find Honest Real Estate?
So my wife she got her real estate license probably like 2 years before I did.
Okay.
She was with another brokerage before that, and she saw an ad that Honest was hiring for office work, and a receptionist. So she wound up, reaching out to Ed. She got hired. She was running the office for Ed and everybody there. So it was easy once she was already there. It was easier for me to transition over to there.
Okay. Yeah. Now, your book of business. Who do you deal with? You deal with buyers, sellers, both? What does that look like?
For me, both. I'd say it's probably 70-30 split, more buyers over listings, but no, I do work, buyers, sellers, occasional commercial, kind of all over the place.
Okay. Now, interest rates, a big topic. Interest rates really recently dropped, basically 1 full percentage point.
Yeah.
We were in the 7s, now we're in the low 6s. So, interest rates are good. Now, what impact are you seeing, if any? Are you seeing any buyers coming off the sidelines? Are you seeing sellers, saying, hey, this may be a good time to sell because now I can buy something at a more reasonable interest rate? What does that look like? What are you seeing?
For me, it seems like it's kind of creeping out a little bit. Some buyers are still a little bit nervous because there's not a lot of inventory still,
right?
Especially in certain zip codes and areas. So they're kind of still a little on the fence, even though rates are dropping. Some are still, we were looking previously and seeing 100 homes, putting in 10, 15, 20 offers.
Right.
So some of them are still a little reluctant on jumping back into it right now. Starting to creep back out again, which is good. So
right, and you're right. I mean, depending on where you're looking, it's going to determine if there's a bunch of inventory or if there's 10 buyers for every home. So
absolutely,
that is a tricky thing, and it's just truly amazing when they say real estate is local. That's the truest thing, because you just never can get away from that, and how one area even though it could be a couple miles away, is completely different than another area. So yeah, that is challenge, and what makes real estate interesting, it's all wrapped up in one.
Exactly.
Okay, so another question I have for you. As far as the lawsuit settlement, I don't want to litigate that, but what are your buyers and sellers saying, if anything, or how did you change how you're doing business?
Honestly, it's business every day. I mean, for me personally, it hasn't changed much. The only thing that really changed a little bit for me is just getting a buyer contract signed ahead of time.
Right.
I was never one to be pushy about it. I'd say, let's put an offer in, we'll sign the buyer contract, we'll move on that way. But now we have to have it signed before, we show the first property. So it's business as usual. I mean, it's nothing's changed. I mean, some people are afraid about asking for commissions and all that. You got to get a deal done. So
right, yeah, and prior, before you put the offer in, you probably get the buyer agency contract signed. Now you have to do it, before you start showing. So you're always signing the form. It's just when in the process.
Timeline,
right? Exactly.
Timeline's a little different now. Yeah.
Now, do you have any objections? Like if you're dealing with buyers, because 70% of your business is buyers, are any buyers a little freaked out about, when you turn around and say, hey, this is what I charge. Now, granted, I'm going to ask on your behalf to see if the seller, will pay my fee for you. But are some people a little bit freaked out about that, or did you always have that conversation? Because I think people had a little bit less of that conversation prior. But I don't know. You tell me.
I think a lot of agents before just kind of threw the buyer contract out to the client, said sign this so we can put an offer in. I always had that discussion ahead of time because, like I said, business hasn't changed.
Right.
We're still commissions are there or they're not there. It's just a little bit more homework for us that we have to do to try and find out the commission. But they always knew that there was always a chance that they liked the property and there was no commission coming from the seller that they had to pay. So same discussions. Like I said, it's just a different timeline. That's all.
Right. And the reality is, a seller always had the choice of not paying a buyer's agent. Now, well, they had to pay $1, but it's still like $1.
Yeah, right.
So they always had that option, and really where it comes into play is, I would imagine, it just how many people are putting offers in on the home. Like if you're in a super competitive area where there's 10, 15 buyers for that house, a seller's going to have the upper hand. And if you're in a different area where, sellers are begging for somebody to put in an offer, they're going to say, we'll give you 10%, just bring somebody, right?
Exactly.
It's always that yin and yang,
And the same thing, it comes down to, zip codes, areas. I mean, if you're in a slower zip code, slower area, and there's tons of homes set on the market, the seller's going to have to be a little bit more aggressive, and they're going to want to pay out commission side to get their home sold. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's business is business. I mean, nothing's changed. Everybody's panicked about it. It's still the same thing. You just have to handle it a little differently.
Right.
That's all.
Okay, so I have a question for you. There's basically two forms of I guess getting compensated. One, you can put right in the agreement of sale. There's page 2, line 3A. You put your commission there, or you can get the CBC, the cooperating broker compensation agreement. So when you're putting in offers, why would you not put in? Because I'm seeing sales contracts. Some have it on the agreement of sale, and others, they're just sending me the CBC over. So when you were putting an offer in for a buyer, why would you opt to put it in the contract versus not? Why are people doing it two different ways? Is my question.
So so I've had classes on this. I wanted to make sure we knew we were doing it properly. So for the CBC, for me, I had tried to have that discussion with the listing agent beforehand, if they're paying commissions or not, so I know. If they say yes, they're paying commissions, it gets put on a co-op. Co-op gets sent over. We know it's already been discussed.
Okay.
Not all agents get back to you. So you don't know. So if you don't know what the commission is,
then you have to put.
That's when you're going to put it in the contract.
Okay.
So there's different ways of doing it, but if you already had the conversation, CBC, put it in there.
Right.
If you didn't have that conversation, put it in the agreement of sale. I think it's the easiest way to do it.
Right. Yeah, because with a NAR settlement, you could do it either way.
Yes.
So it's not like you can't do it one way versus the other. But I was just curious because I would see a bunch of contracts. Half of them would have a CVC with it. The other half would have it on the contract.
Yes.
And there's I guess ultimately it's up to the brokerage, because I know there's certain brokerages that will not do CVCs. They just said, hey, put it in the contract. They would have had the conversation with the seller and they're agreeing to pay.
Yeah.
But they want it on the contract. They don't want a CVC.
Yeah, I think over the next couple months you're going to see a change of the standards of if it's going to be a required document for the CBC. I think it just makes it easier. It's in black and white. It's in there. It's signed by both sides. You're done. There's no arguments.
Right.
Before it was always being on the MLS.
Right.
There was no argument. You had that printed out sheet and you're like, oh no, we said 1%. It's like, no, here you said it was 2.5%.
Right.
So now it's just going to be a little bit of shift, and it's going to take a little time, I think, before a standard falls in place. And I think the agents just need to educate themselves a little bit better. Tons of videos on the NAR PAR websites about it. If you haven't watched the videos, it's the best thing to learn.
Right. And that's key. What you're saying is because, PAR, that's, Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, they're the ones who did the forms. They had their attorneys and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And they have a bunch of webinars that you can go on and take a look. Even GPAR, I interviewed them.
Yeah.
They have links to all that stuff. So yeah, definitely if you feel a little, apprehensive about it, definitely check those things out because, they talk about it.
And all the training's free too. I mean, all the websites, like I said, PAR, NAR, GPAR, they have all the links on there for the classes are all free.
Right.
So it just takes a little bit of time for you to watch them and learn, but it's definitely something to get educated about because you don't want to make mistakes in this because it can be costly.
Right. Now let me ask you on the sales side with your sellers, are you telling agents, or you're having conversations with your sellers, hey, I charge X amount, but a buyer's agent may ask for you to pay commission. Now, are you doing a CVC or having that conversation, or are you telling buyer's agents, just put it in the contract? We'll play ball, but as long as the offer is good, just put it in the contract, and yeah, we're not paying anything if it's good. How do you prefer to do it?
For me, CBC is the easiest way.
The easiest way, okay.
Just fill the one sheet out. There's no confusion. There's no confusion in the agreement of sale of whether the concession has to be paid towards the brokerage side for the commission. Just keeping it for me. CBC.
So you like the CBC? Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of that, and I was always wondering. For me, because when a contract comes over, I'm not seeing the CVC. We have to request that. So if I see it in the contract, okay, to me, in the contract, it's easier. The only question we have is, okay, are you charging anything over and above, let's say the 2.5%, the 2%, the 3%, whatever's on there, and if they say no, this is what I'm charging, great, then we don't need anything else. If you say, hey, I'm going to charge an extra, 0.5% or 1%, then we need the buyer, a broker agreement, or the buyer agent broker agreement. Yeah, I guess,
and I think even for probably on your side for the lenders, I think if you're just trying to keep it simple, keep the CBC. If there's an overlap of what the buyer needs to pay, put the overlap in the agreement of sale. Keep it simple. There's enough changes we have to go through, and trying to reach out to everybody and get all these questions and all that.
Okay, that was very interesting because, like I said, for me, I'm seeing these contracts come over, and I'm seeing certain agencies saying, it's got to put in the contract because there's certain, brokerages saying, no, we're not doing this way. So it was just interesting how there's two ways of doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, like I said, there's two ways. Like I said, but I did take a class on it. Because I'm going for broker class.
Okay.
So I did take a class on it. They explained everything of how you should use both documents, how you should put the overages in, and
right.
That's why it's good that a lot of agents get educated on it.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so you deal with buyers, you deal with sellers.
Yep.
If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that? They said, Ken, you're a damn good-looking guy. Show me some houses, or this is my house. How would they get a hold of you?
Cell phone, text message, phone call, 215-806-5897. I'm usually in the office if I'm not out on the street at Honest Real Estate, most of the time at the Parkwood office.
Okay.
Swing by, shoot me a text, give me a phone call. We can help you out.
Hey, well, thanks for being on the show.
Not a problem. I appreciate it.
You actually answered one question that I've been nagging me going back and forth. Like, why am I saying two different things? So, okay. Thanks a lot. Well, that's the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Instagram, and leave a comment. Very important. I want to hear things that you want us to talk about in the future. Okay. Also, subscribe to the show. I have great guests like Ken coming on all the time and discussing what they're seeing in the market. Remember, this show is everything real estate, no limits. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week.